Welcome back to the show today. We are talking about when NBA teams give up on their star players. In light of the unexpected Luka Dončić trade, a lot of my friends have been asking me if Luka Dončić is so good and everyone thinks this deal was such a bad deal for the Mavericks, why did the Mavericks agree to this trade? And I have to explain to them that not only did the Mavericks agree to this trade, they actually initiated this trade. They called the Lakers to make them an offer they couldn't refuse. So why did the Mavericks decide to sell Luka? For a 25-year-old NBA player, he has the best trajectory of all time. He's even had playoff success. He made the finals last year and he's been to the Western Conference Finals twice already. The only player who possibly has more potential is Wemby. So the main reason the Mavs made this trade is because they didn't want to pay Luka. Luka was eligible for a 5-year, $345 million contract extension. This would have been the largest NBA contract of all time, by far. The Mavs weren't interested in paying him that much money for that long of a period of time, despite Luka proving that he is worth that kind of money. Or at least if there is a player that is worth that kind of money, it would be Luka. The second reason the Mavs traded Luka is for the same reason they didn't want to pay him. The Mavs were worried about Luka's work ethic and specifically his weight. Overall, we get the impression that the Mavs front office believed that Luka was lazy and undisciplined. Nico Harrison said that he believes defense wins championships, so he'd rather build around Anthony Davis, insinuating that Luka doesn't play defense, and that is a known issue. Tim McMahon said the team officials were concerned about the fact that Luka had put on 50 pounds of weight while he'd been injured, since he had his wrist injury around Christmas time. And now Patrick Dumont, the sitting owner of the Dallas Mavericks, has said he wants players with strong work ethics like Kobe Bryant, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, and Shaquille O'Neal. He also says that he doesn't want players who take vacations. I guess this quote is targeted at Luka. So it's clear to me that it's personal between the Mavs and Luka. It obviously has nothing to do with Luka's performance. The thing is, the Lakers are the ones that really benefited from this bad blood, because they got Luka for a song, and not only that, they're not eligible to sign Luka to that supermax contract like the Mavs were. So chances are he's gonna get that contract extension from the Lakers, and it's gonna be for less money. And the Lakers will have more money to build around Luka. So not wanting to pay players is the big reason why teams trade them. The boring thing about the NBA is players rarely ever hit free agency. A lot of times, a year or so before a contract ends, the player will extend their contract with their current team. A lot of times, the team will lock in their star player so they don't have to compete with other teams during free agency. And the player will want to extend that contract so that they can lock in a bunch of money. They can be guaranteed under an NBA contract for a longer amount of time. So this is kind of boring because players rarely ever hit free agency. It does create interesting drama during the regular season. For instance, Jimmy Butler became extension eligible this offseason. He wanted a 2-year extension worth $113 million. That would have meant he was getting paid around the amount of LeBron or Steph. The Heat didn't want to extend him. They didn't think he was worth that much money, which kind of made sense. Last year, Jimmy only played 25 games in the regular season and he only played 1 playoff game. So after Jimmy's extension request was rejected, things got tense in the organization. Jimmy had said after the playoffs that if he was healthy, they would have beat the Boston Celtics. In response, Pat Riley, the president of the Heat, said this:
"If you're not on the court playing against Boston or on the court playing against the New York Knicks, you should keep your mouth shut."
At this point, we all knew there was a lot of tension between both sides and the relationship was over. Jimmy became passively aggressive until he became actively aggressive and requested a trade, unofficially. This same thing also happened with Paul George last year. Paul George became eligible for an extension with the Clippers and the Clippers were like, no. And it ruined the relationship between Paul George and the Clippers, especially because Kawhi, his co-star, did get an extension and he didn't. Paul's mature and he made an effort to not let it affect his game and the team's success. But let's be honest, Paul George wasn't going to go diving for loose balls in the name of the Clippers. He didn't want to risk injury. He's going to become a free agent. This was the story with Klay last year too. Klay was reaching the end of his contract. He was seeing his teammates get these extensions. Guys like Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green, but the offer that Klay did receive from the Warriors, he considered disrespectful. And there was mad tension on that team. The whole entire year, Klay was not happy. So this is why you see a trade like this Luka Dončić trade. A team foresees an awkward extension conversation coming. The player is going to ask for a certain amount of money, and the team is not willing to give them that amount of money. Smart GMs get out in front of this and they trade this player before they even ask for that money. So regardless of what you think of Nico Harrison, you have to understand why he traded Luka when he traded Luka. He did it before he had to tell Luka, I don't want to give you $345 million. Now let's talk about a team who traded their star player while they were in their prime. Let's talk about DeMar DeRozan and the Toronto Raptors. DeRozan was the face of the Raptors. He'd been drafted there in 2009. He started the rebuilding phase after Chris Bosh left. DeRozan was known as just a slasher when he got into the league, but then he developed one of the best mid-range games. This got him an all-star team selection in 2014, and he had 4 all-star appearances as a Raptor and a second-team All-NBA. The Raptors made the playoffs 5 years in a row, even making the Eastern Conference Finals in 2016, but losing to LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers in 6 games. And this was sort of the story with DeMar DeRozan and the Toronto Raptors, losing to LeBron James year in and year out. In 2017, they got swept in the Eastern Conference semifinals, and then they got swept again in 2018 by the Cavs, despite being the #1 seed in the East. This was when Toronto got the pejorative nickname LeBronto. It got so bad that even DeMar admitted that they could not get past LeBron James.
If we had LeBron on our team too, we would have won.
So in 2018, Masai Ujiri, the GM of the Toronto Raptors, decided he wanted Kawhi Leonard and not DeMar DeRozan anymore. So despite DeMar DeRozan having 3 more years left on his contract and Kawhi only having 1, they sent DeMar to San Antonio and got back Kawhi Leonard. And evidently, the Toronto Raptors organization had assured DeMar that they wanted to keep him. And to make matters even worse, the Raptors won the championship in 2019. This validated Masai Ujiri's decision to get rid of DeMar DeRozan. Trades like these are always done in secrecy, because the best time to trade a player is unfortunately when he's not expecting it. Because once a player hears that he's in trade rumors, it's inevitable that that player's passion and their performance is going to drop off. No player is going to go above and beyond for an organization that's trying to ditch them actively. Another player that had an unexpected betrayal by their team is Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose was the most beloved Chicago Bull after Michael Jordan. D Rose was from Inglewood, a neighborhood in Chicago, so when the Bulls got the 2008 first pick, it seemed like destiny. From the jump, Derrick Rose was one of the most confident and hard-working players in the NBA. He was fearless going to the basket and one of the most explosive dunkers we've ever seen. He was and is the youngest NBA MVP, winning the award at only 22 years old. Derrick Rose's explosive style is what set him apart from all the other NBA point guards, but it was also what contributed to his downfall. Derrick Rose tore his ACL in the 2012 playoffs, and then when he returned in 2013, he tore his meniscus, and then suffered multiple other injuries throughout 2014. His production became unrecognizable from the player that won the MVP in 2011. It's interesting though, Bulls fans never turned on Derrick Rose. They never resented him for his inability to stay on the floor. Unlike players like Anthony Davis, Joel Embiid, Kawhi Leonard, I think Bulls fans just felt bad for him. They knew he wanted to play and they knew he wanted to be good. He just didn't have the ability to stay healthy. Then on June 22nd, 2016, the Chicago Bulls traded Derrick Rose to the New York Knicks. Even though Derrick had played 66 games the year before, he just wasn't good enough anymore. He wasn't that franchise player. He only averaged 16 points a game. Jimmy Butler actually had become the best player on that Bulls team, and they were ready to start building around him. Rose still had a bit of trade value on the market though, so rather than lose him in free agency, they decided to ship him out for Robin Lopez in order to replace Pau Gasol, who had left in free agency. Ultimately, Chicago Bulls fans understood that they had to trade Derrick Rose, and so did Rose. There's actually footage of Rose getting the call, being informed that he had been traded.
You lying. You serious? Yeah.
Okay, or you
just in awe.
As you can see, lines get blurry between business and personal relationships here. Your job is your life, and the people you work with are your friends. Derrick Rose is clearly distraught hearing the news, but he's not angry. He just accepts it because it's in the past and he has to now focus on his role as a New York Knick. The Bulls and Rose still have a good relationship too. The Bulls are retiring Derrick Rose's #1 jersey next year. I'm actually of the opinion that NBA players and fans are way too attached to each other. You don't see this level of drama happening in the NFL during transactions. And an important thing to remember is players rarely ever get no trade clauses in their contracts, even when they're eligible for them. The only players in the league right now that have no trade clauses are Bradley Beal and LeBron James. The fact that teams don't give them out and they're reluctant to give them out should tell you how teams see their players, not as family but as assets. In the same way, players can use their leverage as well, like in the case with Jimmy Butler and the Heat. Jimmy held up his end of the bargain. He went out there and he got on the court, but that was about all he did. Hell, James Harden even wore a fat suit to make sure that the Houston Rockets traded him. But that's another story for next week's video. Alright, thank you for being here. Like the video if you enjoyed it. It's helping a lot, so I appreciate that. Leave a comment, tell me a video you want to see. I already told you I have next week's video planned. Be good to your mothers. Eat a corn dog.